Paradise Lost is John Milton's English epic, shaped by a writer deeply engaged in questions of conscience, authority, and moral choice. In Book 1, the poem opens onto the aftermath of rebellion and the problem of what language can make of defeat, and Milton makes English the medium of that struggle. Here we attend to his ideas by listening to their workmanship. The steady power of blank verse, the long sentences that gather and turn, the bold inversions that slow us down and make meaning arrive with force. The passages that follow invite us to hear English stretching and deepening, becoming capable of carrying grand action and inward thought at the same time. Milton opens with the story of humanity's first act of disobedience, the bite of a forbidden fruit that brought death into the world and all our woe. He allows the grammar to spiral outward through images of Eden and a promised greater man before the main verb finally arrives as an imperative, a call to the heavenly muse to sing. This long, controlled sentence shows English borrowing the flexibility of Latin while keeping a steady, 5-beat rhythm that feels like breath and heartbeat combined. It is a reminder that English can be both prayerful and analytical at the same time, building a whole history into a single unfolding thought. Said in flat prose, when humans broke the rule, suffering entered the world. The idea shrinks, whereas Milton's phrasing makes it sound faded and terrible. In the next lines, Milton announces the scale of his project. He refuses any middle flight and promises to pursue things unattempted yet in prose or rhyme. Those phrases have become a kind of motto for English imagination, a language that dares to rival classical epics while still sounding like everyday speech raised to its highest pitch. The line endings lean on strong, plain words, flight, soar, prose, rhyme, so that philosophical ambition arrives with a clear, almost conversational music. A weaker claim, like "I want to write something new in verse," would sound modest and forgettable. Milton's formulation makes English itself sound capable of unprecedented ventures. Epic poets traditionally begin by posing a question to the muse, and Milton turns that convention into a piece of searching moral prose. When he repeats, "Say first," and asks what moved our grandparents to turn away from their creator, the line breaks mimic the weighing of causes and consequences. English here becomes a courtroom language. Clauses stack up. Phrases like happy state and fall off balance each other, and the rhythm hesitates before every crucial verb. The effect is to invite the listener into an inquiry rather than simply to recite doctrine. Put baldly as, "Why did the first humans sin?" the question feels thin. Milton's layered syntax makes it feel both rational and tragic. In his first description of hell, Milton uses English paradox to make theology almost cinematic. He imagines a dungeon horrible, blazing like a furnace, and then gives us the unforgettable phrase, "darkness visible," light that reveals only more suffering. Short, punchy nouns, regions of sorrow, doleful shades, alternate with rolling phrases so that the ear feels both the monotony and the variety of pain. This is English learning to speak about despair with an eerie, luminous precision. A plainer version, "a terrible prison full of pain," would tell us what happens, but leave no echo. Darkness visible lingers in the mind like the scene it describes. Milton then gives Satan a voice whose energy is both compelling and frightening. The famous line, "What though the field be lost? All is not lost," leads into a drumbeat of abstractions: unconquerable will, immortal hate, courage never to submit or yield. By piling those phrases into a list, English turns raw defiance into a kind of rhetorical engine, a speech that can rally others, even as it reveals the speaker's self-deception. Later revolutionary and romantic writers will borrow this cadence of noble-sounding refusal, sometimes without noticing how dangerous it is in Milton's context. If he merely said, "We lost the battle, but we'll keep fighting," the thought would be ordinary. Milton's rhythm makes stubbornness sound grand and therefore more tempting. From the same speech come the lines that have slipped most deeply into everyday English. The mind is its own place, and better to reign in hell than serve in heaven sound like ready-made proverbs, compact enough to be quoted in politics, psychology, or casual talk. Milton shows how epic poetry can mint portable sentences, which people use long after they forget the story that produced them. At the same time, the balance and antithesis in these phrases teach English how to pose moral choices in sharp, memorable contrasts. Set beside a clumsier line, like, "It's better to rule badly than obey well," Milton's version sounds far smoother. And that polish is part of the danger he is exposing. To convey Satan's size, Milton turns to a chain of similes that send English roaming across myth, scripture, and seafaring lore. In a few lines, he moves from earth-born giants to the sea beast Leviathan, and finally to a Norwegian sailor mooring his tiny boat to what he thinks is an island. Each proper name, Typhon, Leviathan, Norway, adds a new cultural layer, while the syntax keeps the whole comparison flowing as a single sentence. English here becomes a vessel for global memory, able to carry Greek, Hebrew, and Northern stories in one sweeping image. The blunt claim, "he was as big as a mountain or a whale," would feel childish. Milton's carefully stacked images give the exaggeration weight and texture. Later, when Milton describes Satan's spear, he turns a simple comparison into an emblem of epic scale. A mast made from the tallest Norwegian pine would, he says, be but a wand beside it. The humor of that exaggeration depends on English understatement. Calling something so immense merely a wand lets irony and grandeur coexist in the same phrase. It shows how a language of ships and timber can suddenly open onto cosmic warfare without changing its basic vocabulary. A more obvious line, "His spear was bigger than a ship's mast," would shout the point. Milton's underplayed comparison invites the listener to imagine the size for themselves. As the fallen angels rise at their leader's call, Milton slows the action with another extended simile. He compares them to autumnal leaves that strew the brooks in Vallombrosa, and to weeds scattered on the Red Sea after Pharaoh's defeat. Domestic words like leaves and brooks sit beside resonant place names, Vallombrosa, Red Sea, Goshen, giving English both local texture and biblical depth. In this blend of homely and heroic, we can hear the language discovering a new way to make the supernatural feel close to ordinary experience. Simply saying, "A huge crowd of fallen angels filled the plain," would summarize the action. Milton's layered comparisons let English feel scale, geography, and theology at once. Near the end of Book 1, Milton pauses to catalog the fallen angels who will later be worshipped as false gods. The portrait of Belial, a spirit more lewd who loves vice for itself and thrives where priests become atheists, reads like an early study in political and social corruption. The clauses lengthen and coil, drawing us through temples, courts, palaces, and city streets until we feel how vice seeps into every institution. Here, English prose poetry exposes hypocrisy with a rhythm as memorable as its moral warning, a resource later satirists and reformers would eagerly exploit. Against a blunt warning like "some leaders love evil just because it's evil," Milton's lines show how supple, insinuating language can unmask that love without ever raising its voice.